I read the book Messengers: Who We Listen to, Who We Don't, and Why by Stephen Martin and Joseph Marks a few years back. The thread that runs through the book is how, in our uncertain and ambiguous world, the messenger is increasingly the message. We frequently fail, they argue, to separate the idea that's being communicated from the person conveying it, explaining why the status or connectedness of the messenger has become more important than the message itself. This made me think about everybody's favorite activity in an organization. Yes, you guessed it right, meetings. Think about the average meeting at your workplace. Who gets listened to and why? Welcome back to my Thursday video series where I share examples for you to use at work to make your messaging sticky. Deborah Tannen is an American author and professor of linguistics at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I read about her research in companies across the United States around the power of talk, who gets heard, and why in an HBR article. She shares an example of a focus group that was organized at a major multinational company to evaluate a recently implemented flex time policy. The participants sat in a circle and discussed the new system. The group concluded that it was excellent, but they also agreed on ways to improve it. The meeting went very well and was deemed a success by all, according to my own observations and everybody's comments to me, she says. But the next day, she was in for a surprise. Deborah had left the meeting with the impression that Phil had been responsible for most of the suggestions adopted by the group. But as she sat down to type up her notes, she noticed that Cheryl had made almost all these suggestions. She had thought that the key ideas came from Phil because he had picked up Cheryl's points and supported them, speaking at greater length in doing so than Cheryl had when she had raised these points. It would be easy to regard Phil as having stolen Cheryl's ideas and her thunder. That would be inaccurate. Phil never claimed Cheryl's idea as his own. Cheryl herself told Deborah later that when she left the meeting, she was feeling confident that she had contributed significantly and that she appreciated Phil's support. Cheryl volunteered with a laugh. It was not one of those times when a woman says something and it's ignored, and then a man says the same thing and it's picked up. In other words, Cheryl and Phil worked well as a team, the group fulfilled its charge, and the company got what it needed. So, what was the problem then? Deborah went back and asked all the participants who they thought was the most influential group member, the one responsible for the ideas that had been adopted. The pattern of answers was revealing. The two other women in the group named Cheryl, two of the three men named Phil. Of the men, only Phil named Cheryl. In other words, in this instance, the women evaluated the contribution of other women more accurately than the men did. Meetings like this take place daily in companies around the world. Unless the managers are unusually good at listening closely to how people say what they mean, the talents of someone like Cheryl could well be undervalued and underutilized. It may seem, for example, that running a meeting in an unstructured way gives equal opportunity to all. But the awareness of differences in conversational style make it easy to see the potential for unequal access. Those who are comfortable speaking up in groups, who need little or no silence before raising their hands, or who may speak out easily without waiting to be recognized, are far more likely to get heard at meetings. Those who refrain from talking unless it's clear that the previous speaker is finished, who wait to be recognized, and who are inclined to link their comments to those of the others, will do fine at a meeting where everyone else is following the same rules. but they will have a hard time getting heard in a meeting with people whose styles are far more like the first pattern. In a culturally diverse and global workplace, managers will need to become even better at reading these interactions and more flexible at adapting their own styles to the people with whom they interact. And a manager who's aware of these dynamics might devise any number of ways, including using AI tools, to ensure that everybody's ideas are heard and credited. While I don't want to generalize from just this one focus group, it did make me go back to one of the conversations that I had with my friend Minola Jacques on storytelling for change to check on the conversational overlay and whether we gave room for each other, especially considering that both of us are so passionate about this topic. Thanks to tools like Auto.ai, it was possible to check on this. The split between the two of us was 49-51 or 51-49 for most of the segments. While this is a two-person only conversation, and this split amazingly happened organically, it need not, especially when you have large team meetings. So, what would you do at your workplace to ensure meetings are equitable and inclusive? Do share in the comments and let me know.